You know what the hardest thing in trading is? It's not reading charts. It's not understanding indicators. It's not even managing risk. The hardest thing in trading is doing absolutely nothing. And I mean nothing, sitting there, watching, waiting. While every fiber of your being screams at you to click that button, to get in the game, to do something, anything. But here's what nobody tells you. The money isn't made in the doing. The money is made in the waiting. And until you understand that, truly understand it in your bones, you'll keep bleeding your account dry, wondering what went wrong. Let me ask you something. Have you ever sat in front of your charts, seen a setup that looked almost right, and thought to yourself, well, maybe I'll just take this one, just to be in the game? Be honest, we've all done it. That little voice that whispers, you're missing out, the market's moving, everyone else is making money, why are you just sitting there? That voice? That's the voice that empties accounts. That's the voice that separates the 95% who fail from the 5% who actually make it. Because the 5% have learned something that sounds simple but feels almost impossible to execute. They've learned to do nothing. Now, why is this so hard? Why does sitting still feel like torture when you're staring at a chart? Let me explain what's actually happening in your brain. Your mind is wired for action. Thousands of years of evolution have programmed you to respond to stimuli. See a threat? React. See an opportunity? Grab it. This served your ancestors well when they were hunting on the savanna. But in trading, this wiring is your worst enemy. Every tick of the chart triggers something deep inside you. The market moves up, and you feel the pull. The market moves down, and you feel the fear. Your brain interprets these movements as signals that require response. It screams at you that inaction is dangerous, that sitting still means missing out, that doing nothing is the same as failing. But here's the truth. In trading, doing nothing is often the most profitable action you can take. Let me say that again, because it's that important. Doing nothing is often the most profitable action you can take. Think about it. Every trade you don't take is money you don't lose on commissions. Every weak setup you pass on is capital preserved for the real opportunity. Every moment of patience is an investment in your future success. But your brain doesn't see it that way. Your brain sees a chart moving and interprets your inaction as a threat. It floods you with anxiety, with restlessness, with that unbearable itch to just do something. And most traders? They scratch that itch. They take the mediocre setup. They enter on the almost signal. They convince themselves that this time will be different, that maybe this trade will work out. It usually doesn't. Let me tell you about a trader I knew. We'll call him Marcus. Marcus was smart, really smart. He understood technical analysis better than most professionals I've met. He could identify patterns, draw trend lines, calculate risk-reward ratios in his head. On paper, he should have been incredibly successful. But Marcus had a problem. He couldn't sit still. Every day, Marcus would take between 15 and 20 trades. He'd scalp the morning session, swing trade the afternoon, hold positions overnight. He was always in the market, always active, always doing something. And you know what? Some of those trades worked. He'd have winning days, sometimes winning weeks. But at the end of every month, when he tallied up his results, he was barely breaking even. Sometimes he was down. All that activity, all that stress, all that screen time, and nothing to show for it. One day, I asked Marcus to try an experiment. I said, for the next 2 weeks, you're only allowed to take 3 trades per day, maximum, no exceptions. He looked at me like I'd asked him to stop breathing. 3 trades? But I'll miss so many opportunities. Will you? I asked. Or will you finally start taking only the opportunities that actually matter? Marcus reluctantly agreed. The first few days were torture for him. He'd see setups and have to let them pass. He'd watch the market move and sit on his hands. He told me later that it felt like withdrawal, like his body was physically craving the action he was denying it. But something interesting happened by the end of the first week. Marcus started to see the market differently. With only 3 trades allowed, he became ruthlessly selective. He stopped chasing every wiggle and started waiting for the setups that truly met all his criteria. His win rate jumped from 42% to 63%. His average winner got larger because he was only taking the highest quality setups. And for the first time in months, he finished a week solidly profitable. Not because he learned a new strategy, not because he found a better indicator, but because he finally learned to do nothing. Now, I want you to understand something important. Doing nothing doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean disengaging from the market. It doesn't mean closing your charts and walking away. Doing nothing is active. Doing nothing is engaged. Doing nothing is perhaps the most disciplined thing a trader can do. When you're doing nothing, you're watching, you're studying, you're preparing. You're like a predator waiting in the grass, completely still, completely focused, waiting for exactly the right moment to strike. The amateur trader is like a dog chasing every car that passes. The professional is like a lion who watches and watches and watches, and then explodes into action at precisely the right moment. Which one do you think eats? Here's what doing nothing actually looks like in practice. You sit down at your trading station. You review your charts. You identify the key levels, the potential setups, the conditions you're waiting for. And then you wait. The market opens. Things start moving. You see a setup that looks interesting, but it's not quite right. The entry isn't clean. The risk-reward is marginal. Something feels off. The old you would take it anyway. The old you would rationalize, convince yourself it's good enough, find reasons to get in. The new you does nothing. You watch that setup play out. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. Either way, you're not in it, and that's okay, because you know your setup, the one that's truly yours, the one you've tested and refined and proven. That setup will come, and when it does, you'll be ready. You'll have capital, you'll have clarity, you'll have conviction. But you have to survive until that moment, and survival means learning to do nothing. Let me share another truth with you. The market is designed to make you act. Every tick, every candle, every movement is a temptation. The market whispers in your ear constantly, "Here's a move, don't you want it? Here's a breakout, aren't you going to chase it? Here's a pullback, isn't this your chance?" The market is like a casino. And just like a casino, it profits from your activity. Every trade you take, there are commissions, spreads, slippage. The more active you are, the more you pay. The house always gets its cut. But unlike a casino, the market gives you a choice. You don't have to play every hand. You don't have to be at the table every minute. You can sit out. You can wait. You can do nothing. And that's your edge. That's the one thing you control completely. Not whether the market goes up or down. Not whether your trade works or fails, but whether you take the trade at all. Now, let me address something I know you're thinking. But if I do nothing, I can't make money. I have to trade to profit. You're right. Eventually, you have to act. Eventually, you have to pull the trigger. But here's the key. You have to earn the right to act through patience. Think of it like this. Every moment of patience is like depositing money in a bank. You're building up your reserves of discipline, of clarity, of capital. And when the perfect setup finally appears, you make a withdrawal. You take the trade. You execute with conviction. But if you're constantly withdrawing, if you're taking trade after trade without depositing patience first, eventually you go bankrupt. Your account runs dry. Your discipline crumbles. Your clarity disappears. Most traders are in a constant state of withdrawal. They never deposit anything. They never build up their reserves. and then they wonder why they're always running on empty. I want you to try something. Tomorrow, when you sit down to trade, I want you to set a rule. Before you can take any trade, you have to wait at least 1 hour. 60 minutes of doing nothing. Just watching. Just observing. Just letting the market show you what it wants to do. During that hour, you'll feel the itch. You'll see setups that look tempting. You'll want to break your rule, just this once, because this opportunity looks too good to pass up. Don't. Stay disciplined. Watch the clock. Wait out the full hour. And then notice something interesting. By the end of that hour, most of those can't-miss opportunities will have revealed themselves for what they really are. Some will have worked out, sure, but many will have failed. Many will have shown that they weren't as good as they looked in the moment. And you'll still be there, capital intact, mind clear, ready for the real opportunity. That's the power of doing nothing. Let me tell you about the psychology behind why this is so effective. When you're in a state of constant action, your brain is operating in reactive mode. You're responding to stimuli, making quick decisions, relying on instinct. This might work for some activities, but in trading, reactive mode is dangerous. When you force yourself to do nothing, you shift your brain into a different state. You move from reactive to observational. You start to see patterns you missed before. You notice things about the market's behavior that were invisible when you were too busy trading to pay attention. Great traders aren't great because they trade more. They're great because they see more. And you can only see clearly when you're not distracted by the noise of constant activity. There's another benefit to doing nothing that nobody talks about. It preserves your mental energy. Trading is mentally exhausting. Every decision you make depletes your cognitive resources. It's called decision fatigue, and it's real. The more decisions you make in a day, the worse those decisions become. By the end of a 20-trade day, your brain is running on fumes. You're making impulsive choices. You're taking shortcuts. You're ignoring your rules because you simply don't have the mental energy to follow them anymore. But when you trade less, when you do nothing for most of the day, you preserve your mental resources for when they actually matter. When your setup finally appears, you're fresh, you're focused, you're operating at peak capacity. This is why the best traders often take only a handful of trades per week. They're not lazy, they're smart. They understand that quality of execution matters far more than quantity of trades. Now, I want to address the emotional component of this. Because learning to do nothing isn't just a mental challenge, it's an emotional one. When you sit there doing nothing while the market moves, you'll feel things: frustration, anxiety, fear of missing out, boredom, restlessness. These feelings are real and they're powerful. Most traders try to escape these feelings by trading. They use activity as a numbing agent, a way to avoid the discomfort of sitting still. But this is exactly backward. The path to profitable trading runs straight through that discomfort. You have to learn to sit with those feelings without acting on them. You have to feel the itch without scratching it. You have to experience the fear of missing out and recognize it for what it is, just a feeling, not a command. This is where meditation and mindfulness become powerful tools for traders. Not because they're trendy or spiritual, but because they teach you exactly this skill. They teach you to observe your thoughts and feelings without being controlled by them. When you can watch a trade you're not in go exactly the way you predicted and feel the frustration and not let it affect your next decision, that's mastery. When you can sit through 2 hours of choppy, boring price action without forcing a trade just to feel alive, that's mastery. When you can end a day with 0 trades and feel proud of yourself instead of disappointed, that's mastery. And mastery is what separates professionals from amateurs. Let me share something that might surprise you. The most successful trader I've ever known, someone who's made more money in the markets than most people will see in a lifetime. He told me his secret once. He said, "My edge isn't my strategy. My edge is my ability to do nothing longer than anyone else can stand to. Think about that. His strategy was good, sure, but plenty of people have good strategies. What set him apart was his capacity for patience, his willingness to wait days, sometimes weeks, for exactly the right setup, his ability to watch money being made by others and not feel compelled to chase it. He understood something profound. The market isn't going anywhere. It will be there tomorrow. It will be there next week. It will be there next year. There is no rush. But your capital, your mental clarity, your discipline, those are finite resources, and every unnecessary trade depletes them. So he protected those resources fiercely. He did nothing until doing something was clearly, obviously, undeniably the right move. And then he acted with complete conviction. That's the model. That's what you should aspire to. Now let me give you some practical ways to train yourself to do nothing, because knowing you should wait and actually waiting are two very different things. First, create physical barriers to action. Move your mouse away from the screen. Sit on your hands if you have to. Some traders I know actually log out of their trading platform during non-optimal hours. They make it physically harder to act impulsively. Second, keep a waiting journal. Every time you feel the urge to trade but manage to resist, write it down. Note what the setup looked like, why you didn't take it, and what happened afterward. Over time, you'll build evidence that doing nothing was the right choice. This evidence becomes armor against future temptation. Third, reward yourself for patience. Most traders only celebrate winning trades. Start celebrating the trades you didn't take. Finish a day with 0 trades but perfect discipline? That's worth acknowledging. That's an achievement. Fourth, study your past trades and identify the ones that came from impatience. Look at your losing trades. How many of them were setups you knew weren't quite right, but took anyway? Seeing this pattern in your own data is powerful. It makes the cost of impatience concrete and real. Fifth, develop a mantra, something you repeat to yourself when the urge to trade gets strong. It could be simple. The opportunity will come. Patience is my edge. Doing nothing is doing something. Whatever resonates with you. Use it as an anchor when the temptation peaks. Let me talk about what happens when you finally master this. Because there's a transformation that occurs, and it's worth describing so you know what you're working toward. When you truly learn to do nothing, trading becomes almost boring. The drama disappears. The emotional roller coaster flattens out. You sit, you watch, you execute when appropriate. You wait some more. Your friends who trade will talk about their exciting days, their big wins, their crushing losses. You'll nod along, but inside you'll feel disconnected from that world because your trading doesn't feel exciting anymore. It feels like a job, a systematic, repeatable, almost mundane job. And that's when you know you've made it. Because profitable trading isn't exciting. Profitable trading is boring. The excitement most traders feel is a symptom of emotional involvement, and emotional involvement is the enemy of good decision-making. When you're bored, you're doing it right. When you're calm, you're doing it right. When you can't remember if you traded yesterday because all your days blend together in a rhythm of patient observation and selective execution, you're doing it right. This might sound unappealing. You might have gotten into trading looking for excitement, for the thrill of the game. If that's still what you're looking for, I'll be honest with you. You're not ready to be profitable yet. Profitability requires surrendering the excitement. It requires embracing the boredom. It requires finding satisfaction in the quiet discipline of doing nothing, day after day, until the moment arrives that's worth acting on. There's a famous story about a trader who was asked how he made so much money in the markets. His answer was simple. I just wait until there's money lying in the corner, and all I have to do is walk over and pick it up. That's the mentality. You're not hunting. You're not chasing. You're not fighting. You're just waiting for the market to present you with an obvious opportunity. Something so clear and so aligned with your edge that taking it feels almost effortless. Those opportunities don't come every day. Sometimes they don't come every week. But when they come, you're ready. You've preserved your capital through patience. You've maintained your clarity through discipline. You've earned the right to act through doing nothing. And that's when you strike. Hard. With conviction. With size. One